Hello, Kyle Alcoholic. Um, so for the month of March, the Southeastern Regional Conference of Young People in AA is invading 5D, and tonight we've got a special one. This is Ray. She was our graphics chair during our bid, and she hops on host and is our graphics chair for host. And she's like she's like a little sister to me. I've seen her come in basically day one or two or three, something like that, and she's just really grown to have a very strong message, and and is also unintentionally hilarious at all points and times. So that's the amazing part. There's people I know that can be very draining, and she's the opposite of that. She gives me energy anytime she's around. So without further ado, with her experience, strength, and hope, I give everybody Ray.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Kyle. My name's Ray, alcoholic. My sobriety date is June 30th of 2022. I am from Orlando, Florida. And today I will be speaking. I actually thought of this topic when I was speaking to my sponsor today, and I decided to speak about sex in relationships. So just to tell you a little about myself, um, in regards of the topic, I was never really super sexually active growing up. I lost my virginity when I was 20, and it was like in a point in my life where everyone around me was having sex. I wasn't having sex, and I was like, what is the big deal about this? Why am I not like getting any? Is there something wrong with me? And then I just was like, fuck it, I'm gonna have sex. There was a guy at my job who was new. He was looking at me. I was looking at him. Got a number from a friend. Next thing you know, I'm at his apartment and we have some drinks, smoking some weed. And then we don't have sex because I was nervous. So I lied and I said, I'm on my period. And then I met him the next day and then we did have sex. It sucked. Barely knew the guy, wasn't really feeling him. I just wanted it to have it. And that thus began the cycle that I have had in my life. I was kind of always involved with alcohol. I liked it at parties and when I was hanging out with friends because it made me feel loose, it made me feel confident. I liked myself when I was drinking, and I want others to like me. And in order to like kind of get that validation that I was doing life right, I would kind of seek it from other people, particularly men. They gave me more attention when I was scrumptious and easy for them, I guess. And one thing would lead to another, and I would end up having sex with the person. And I did it kind of as a way to fill kind of like an insecurity I had, um, kind of thinking that I wasn't enough and not really getting attention from others in my life. So when I noticed that I would get attention from these people I slept with, it made me feel good. It made me feel confident. It made me feel validated. And I kind of liked the attention. Um, Sadly, it wasn't always like that. Um, Kind of like a year I joined the military, one of my last couple of months in Florida. I had some sexual trauma that happened to me. Um, I always hated it, of course, and I hated that night and everything that happened. And after it happened, I kind of just like buried myself in a hole and tried to like completely forget everything that happens. And I think one of the saddest things that happened then was that happened after it was not being mad at the person, but being mostly mad and sad about myself. After that happened, I kind of had extreme low confidence, lower than what it already was. I was mad at myself and blaming myself. Why did I trust that person? Why did I think of him as a friend? Why would I let that happen to me? And I kind of buried it. No one knew except for my little sister that helped me that night, which I also hated myself for having that happen. But yeah, so I just buried it, kept on drinking, and kind of acted like nothing changed in my life. No one around me really noticed, and I never got help or therapy for it. Because growing up, my sister was always the troubled one with depression, not depression in quotation marks, trouble in quotation marks. Um, she did suffer from depression and self-harm. And growing up, my dad would always kind of call me the easy one. So I kind of kept on living to that standard and never got help or therapy. Um, and that, of course, affected it. And then, but you know what was there? Alcohol. So I kept on drinking, and then I drank. And it was, of course, a bad combination. Alcohol already by itself and my alcoholism, that I didn't think I had at the time. But I used alcohol as a way to like bury myself deeper from that trauma. And I didn't really change my habits. And I would then use my sexual relationships with people as a way to further deepen that thought, trying to like, I don't know how to say it, kind of like redeem myself. And I would still seek attention from men and people that I couldn't get from myself. And that just kept on burying me in a deeper hole. I'm not, when I look back at those times, I'm not like, the men weren't bad that I had sex with. They just weren't good for me. I knew deep down what I always wanted was a relationship where a guy would respect me and love me. And what I was doing in order to get that was just kind of hopping on with the first guy that would give me the attention that I wanted and just ride along with him as like long as possible. These guys that I was with didn't really respect me. They weren't pieces of shit. One of them was kind of. He was just an asshole. But forgive and forget. But anyways, they weren't like bad people. They just weren't the people I needed and the people that wanted me in a way. But I would just keep on hoping that the next guy could be different, that maybe that I can be different. Maybe it was something wrong that I didn't do to make them like me enough. Maybe it was this new move they wanted to try I didn't that I didn't want to try, that they dumped me. Or maybe if I did try to do this new move, they would want me. Or if I looked pretty enough, if I dressed different, if I acted different, and stuff like that. And it would just keep on like digging in my head, like, why am I not getting this attention that I wanted and like satisfaction? Like, why won't these people stay with me? But it was an endless cycle. And it really wasn't until before I even looked at the common factors, I hit my rock bottom. I, on June 30th, I considered shit happened. I lost a promotion, took it to heart, along with a lot of other shit that just kept on tumbling and tumbling down. My trauma, my need of validation, my alcoholism, my need of therapy just all tumbled down that day. And it was a bad day. And that's when I realized I really needed to get help, because the way I was going to kill myself and I wanted to die. So I reached out to people who I trusted and they got me help. In the military, they were able to provide me with a service. They ended up taking me to rehab. I got sober, and I met my sponsor 2 days after I got out of rehab, which is crazy. Good luck. Still my sponsor to this day. Shout out. But yeah, I remember in rehab thinking one of the rules was always like, oh, you can't have sex in the first year of sobriety. And I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna fucking lose it. Because that was a long time. It is a long time. And I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to do it. But I did it. Thank the Lords. But I mean, there were times that I was like tempted and everything. But the most important thing I like remembered from myself was the whole reason why I got sober in the beginning. And that was to do better for myself, what I always needed in a relationship, doing better for myself. And I worked with my sponsor. I did the steps. I even wanted to like start a relationship or get back out in the field sooner than I wanted to, but my sponsor was like, nah, at least not till you complete your inventory. And I was like, that's crazy. I did my inventory. Took me 6 months. It was a long 6 months. Worked the steps, did my inventory, did the fifth step. Most eye-awakening experience, reading out those resentments and flaws and things. But it was a good experience, and it was something that I needed. I remember there was a saying I heard, when you walk in shit, the foot smells like shit or something. But it's basically saying how there's like a common factor in everything. And when I did the steps and looked at my relationships and stuff like that, I realized that the common factor was me. I wasn't changing any of my behaviors and stuff. And now that I was getting sober and working the steps and realizing my character defects and wanting to change, I was able to reflect on that and see how I was supposed to do better. And yeah, so I did that all. And like towards when at beginning of the steps, I remember speaking to my sponsor. I was like, there's someone I'm interested in and I want a relationship. And that's when she first brought it up, finish your inventory. And I did it. And once we did the relationship one, and we listed out all the like character defects and then seeing what I needed in order to find a partner. That's when I kind of knew I was ready. And the first guy that popped in my head, that has been like popping in my head throughout the beginning of my hoedown days, was a guy that I met when I first came to Virginia. And it was one of my best friends at the time. And I remember when I first like entertained the thoughts of like being in a relationship with him, I was always like so scared that I would ruin it, that I would somehow fuck it up and he would leave me or I would hurt him, and essentially core down thinking that I wasn't good enough for him, that a guy like this couldn't be for a girl like me who's fucked up, selfish, has this kind of trauma hanging around her. But when I realized that, when I finally got the help and I realized that I was ready, I remember one of the core things that I thought about was, if I'm not ready, I lost my train of thought. One of the core things I was like scared about, that if I wouldn't be ready enough, was he's in the military too, that somehow he would get stationed, somehow life would in the end fuck it up for me and him. And I think that's one of the times that I had to really rely on my relationship with my higher power. And that kind of showed me that no matter what happens, whatever happens, happens. if he was into some way leave or something, then that means, and it didn't work out, that means it wasn't that time, or it wouldn't be ready for me, or it would be in a learning relationship or a learning experience. And that's when I really had to like think to myself and ask myself if I'm ready. If anything happens, am I ready to finally be in a relationship? And I had to consider what I wanted in a relationship. If I wanted that, I wanted trust and respect and loyalty and everything. And when I sat down with my sponsor, I realized I was ready for all that. I knew what I wanted in relationship, and I wasn't going to sacrifice anything or anyone in order to get to that. And that my higher power would lead me in a way that I can be ready and show me when I am ready. So I prayed about it a lot. And finally, I worked up the nerves once I was able to ask him out a year, on my 1 year mark, about that same month. And he said yes. And we went on a date. And it was the most amazing date ever. And we got married on February 1st this year. And it was one of the best decisions I have ever made with him. And in this relationship, I learned when what exactly I deserve, and seeing kind of like my hard work go into fruition. He supports me with all of my AA ventures, all my YPAW ventures. Um, he's sitting here listening to me speak right now as I'm nervous as heck talking to 70 people. And every moment with him, I feel myself wanting to grow and do better, not just because of him, because of my higher power and the role I have in with it, but I feel confident that he is part of the plan that my higher power has with me. And just being able to build that relationship and really seeing myself go from not the bottom, but I kind of was at the bottom in my life, to where I am now, really like helps me feel confident that I've made the right choices and pushes me to continue doing better. And I remember before we got married too, I had to do a marriage inventory with my sponsor, and that was fun. She called it spot check inventory. But she had me write down all my fears that I had with commitment and things like that. And one of the overarching themes was that I wasn't allowing room for my higher power to come into our marriage. Because, I mean, the fears are still like there, but I mean, the fear of if he leaves me and stuff like that all kind of points to me being ready and knowing I have the strength to get through whatever I can. Because, I mean, I fucking made it this far. Um, and life's just going to continue to be lifey. And no matter what happens, I know seeing my growth and my willingness to change and to continue to do better is what pushes me to stay strong and be strong with him him, my husband, being strong with him in a way. So I think that concludes my story. Thanks for letting me share.